And coming in 2024, we are working on something massive, which we think will finally put this flat Earth idea to bed for good. For good. But first, we will be announcing the golden ticket winner live tomorrow.
That means there's one golden ticket still floating around somewhere.
Can you imagine the nerve of that guy? Trying to fool the whole world?
Boy, he really was a crook.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some music to kind of set the tone. And then I'm just going to remove you guys one at a time. And the last person that remains is the golden ticket winner.
Good luck, girl.
And we have a winner.
Oh my God, thank you, God. Thank you, DFP. Oh my God. Oh my God. You, everybody. I won't let us down. I'm here for the truth, I promise.
I pinky promise.
Poppy, you know you can't go back on a pinky promise.
I'm here for the truth, I promise.
The truth has already been discovered and told. Whether you go to the Arctic or Antarctic, the spinning globe model has already been demonstrably falsified via sun observations alone. It's an option that should no longer be on the table. Feel free to enjoy the penguins still and to ponder over other models of the Earth and any light you may or may not see in the sky. It will matter not for the heliocentric globe model, though, as we will see.
I think a lot of people are going to be excited to have you representing the flat Earth side, and I'm happy to have you aboard as well.
Thank you. I'm so thankful for this opportunity. And one more shout out to Bert Pasquale, my NASA friend. He's
friends in low places.
This is the scientific method, right? You make predictions and then test it. The globe model predicts a 24-hour sun in the south in Antarctica, and the flat Earth model predicts no 24-hour sun in Antarctica, meaning the sun will rise and set each day.
So there you go. That was a day in the life. It's about, I think 7:30 right now, as you can see. Still sunny and bright. There really is no true darkness at this point in the year. The sun sets, but there's so much reflective surface, so much ice out here that it never gets dark.
Okay, if you look at this right here. Okay, watch. We're gonna have the sun. So in the north, in the summer of the north, right? It's gonna move like this, right? Now it's gonna move out to the outside, and you see what happens? It starts to light up the whole outside. You see that? See how it's lit up on the other side of the flashlight here? Yeah, it's called the coffee cup caustic. The light wraps around. Do you see how the whole outside is lit up? You see that? That explains 24-hour daylight. That explains longer days. That explains everything. It's a real effect that happens. As it gets further out, look, it starts to cover more and more of it. Then you go back to the north. Now it's not going to do that. It's going to cover up. Why is it not light the whole time? Well, because it doesn't light up the whole Earth the whole time. You have to move it further or get it a little bit closer in relation to its diameter. But again, you see it lights up the whole outside right there. It's a very cool effect. It's a real thing. So there's that.
And the sun sets. The sun sets. The sun sets. The sun sets, but there's so much reflective surface, so much ice out here that it never gets dark. The sun sets.
Team of guys, but I was the guy who made the robotic taper. I didn't even want to go because I freaking hate the cold. And my boss begged me. He said, David, you're the only guy that can go because you're the only one who knows how to put it together. I was pissed the entire time I was down there. Okay. I did not want to be there, but it was still cool. I'm glad I went now in hindsight, but I was mad the whole time.
So, well, a lot of talk about a 24-hour sun not being in Antarctica. The Globies will say it exists.
Okay, all right. There is. It's like twilight. There's never a sun.
Yeah, you don't see the sun. That's a totally different story.
It's like twilight.
So you wouldn't be on the Antarctica one. You're not guaranteed to see the 24-hour sun on that one.
No, you won't find that in Antarctica, unfortunately. Only in the Arctic.
Why do you? What would
Antarctica? It's most likely just to be where we would have our penguins, and you will see your wildlife with your walruses and things like that. And obviously to cross the circle, which would be the 60-degree point. But when it comes to the midnight sun, you'll only find that in the Arctic.
What would be the reason? Why can't you find it in the Antarctica? Just curiosity.
So normally because of the sun that basically goes up and north, and because Antarctica is basically in the southern point of the continent, and when you discover the seventh continent, the sun literally does only come out a very small part throughout the day, where it's mostly about cloudy and rainy and very cold, where in the Arctic you'll get a much more amount of hours of sunlight, and basically in the Canadian Arctic it will be much more ideal, and because of the time frames and the weather conditions down south, you won't be able to actually get a full 24 hours of sunlight. It's very, very seldom where you'll find that in Antarctica. Antarctica is more of basically the seventh continent, so that you can say that it's the last continent on the Earth, where in the Arctic there's more of an itinerary thing to go through, and it's more ideal for warmer weather conditions opposed to Antarctica.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, as the Earth, being a globe and it's got equal tilt, all year around, I would think that both Arctic and Antarctic would have the 24-hour sun. But you're saying that's not the case. So the Arctic's is the only one to see the 24-hour sun.
Yes, I'm 100% sure about that. When it comes to even our expeditions that we do offer, if I look at Antarctica, it's basically we have, like I mentioned, to the peninsula and back. Then we have to South Georgia, and then you go to the peninsula and back. And then there's another one where we have the Epic Antarctica, where we'll basically go to South Georgia, Falklands, and we'll go to cross the circle, cross the circle, cross the circle. Cross the circle, and then you'll go to the peninsula and back, which is our longest itinerary, which is 23 days. And even that doesn't have a special one where we will have the opportunity under the midnight sun. We will actually have that full view of the sun throughout the whole day. There's only partial amounts of times where you will have sun, but not for the full 24 hours.
Ever, right? Ever in Antarctica? It's never like that?
No.
Okay.
Never like that. For all the 30 years that we've been traveling, we haven't had any particular person actually come back and state that that is the case, where they found that for the full 24 hours there's basically been that particular time frame that the sun has been out.
Okay.
I know that it does, the sun does set a bit later within the evening because of it obviously being on the lost continent. But it's not that the sun will be out completely for the full 24 hours.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, well, you've given me some information that I can go back and look at, and I'm going to do a little more research to figure out. So you said June, July for the Arctic, so that's what I'll be looking at. I'm going to get on here and look at a couple of cruises or whatever and see what we can figure out. But I appreciate you answering my questions.
Of course.
I appreciate your help, sir. You have a good day.
No worries. Awesome. Have a fantastic day further, and I'll chat to you soon.
You too, sir. Thank you.
And the sun sets. The sun sets.
There's never a sun.
Yeah, you don't see the sun. That's a totally different
It's
story.
like twilight.
Now, I'm going to ignore all those on the flat Earth side. I'm going to ignore all those on the flat Earth side who have completely reversed course and no longer want to go to Antarctica and are complaining that it's too cold and that we can't learn much from the lights in the sky.
The truth is that we have already learned from the lights in the sky, and this is why one can know for certain as to why the globe model cannot be a candidate for the so-called final experiment.
Albert Einstein said, "I've come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment, though the Earth is revolving around the Sun." Now, is the Earth revolving around the Sun? Albert Einstein said that he couldn't prove it. There's no optical experiment. Now, so I can think of a few ways to test, to see if the Earth is moving. So in this video, I'm going to focus on the issue, is the Earth moving and is the Earth rotating? So Albert Einstein was saying that if you were on this wheel, right, if the wheel was moving, you wouldn't be able to do visual observations to see whether the protractor is moving or if the wheel was moving. Now I know that that's not true. The one way we can test is by using a automated pan rotation head for a camera. So that pan head we can set on a timer. It's going to do a rotation over a period of time. So how can this help us to test? So the first thing we need to see, let's say I use a pan tilt head. It's going to rotate 360 degrees in a 24-hour period. Doesn't matter where I stand, my position, my speed will be constant over that 24 hours. Now, it's not the same if I'm moving. If I'm rotating, my speed cannot be constant. So the person in the middle, he's turning to his right 360 degrees, but so is the person on the outside. But what's the difference? The motion will be detectable in your video footage. So let's look at our first piece of evidence. Now what this evidence is going to reveal, that the Earth is not moving. The Earth is standing still. So how do we prove this? Our first piece of evidence is from Fraser Gunn. He's got a YouTube channel and his video is entitled The Takapo Night Sky, a 360 degree pan. So let's see what his footage looks like and then we can analyze it. So here's his footage. His pan tilt head is rotating to his left, and that's the night sky. So, is the Earth moving or is the stars moving? This footage reveals that the Earth is standing still and the stars are moving. Why? Because of his pan tilted. His pan tilted is rotating, and it's rotating to his left. So how does this footage then prove that the Earth is not rotating and that the stars are rotating? So let's have a look. If you are facing forward, right, you're going to do a rotation in a 12-hour period, and it's a 360 rotation. So what must happen? If you move forward and you rotate, you're rotating to your left 360 degrees, well, you can't see the Milky Way galaxy in front of you for 12 hours. You'll be facing the wrong way at the end of the rotation. And if you rotate to your right, well, you can't see the Milky Way galaxy at all during that 12-hour period. So your rotation must end when? At 6 o'clock in the morning. You're facing the wrong way. Right? So I find it a bit strange that Albert Einstein said that there's just no way that you can test it. Remember, we'll get given an answer and we're going to test it. So, evidence number 2. If I compare both camera movements, one to my left and one to the right, over a 24-hour period, 360 pan left and right comparison over a 24-hour period, well, your speed of the camera is not the same for both, and where you're facing can't be the same for both. Right, so we're still using the pan tilt head. We 24-hour period, 360 rotation. So let's analyze that a bit more. If I'm facing the moon, right, I've got a palm behind me, that's a marker, the moon is a marker, and we have time, a 24-hour period. So if I'm rotating to my left, the motion of the camera and the rotation speed of the camera will be different because the rotation of the Earth has to be added to the rotation of the camera. It will become evident. So, in the opposite direction, I can only ever face the same direction as the moon, and the speed of my rotation will be different. Let's expand on this a little bit. If I am on a rotating platform, the platform's rotating, and I have a cutout palm. I put 2 palm trees on that rotation circle, and I'm standing on that circle. In front of me I have a moon, and to my left I have the sun. So from my perspective, as that platform rotates, what would I expect to see? So we're going to put a camera by this man, and we're going to see what he observes, and we can learn from this. Right, so if I'm rotating to my left, watch the ground, the motion of the platform. So the platform would swing out faster. Your speed cannot be the same. You would see the moon 3 times when you start. As it swings by, you'd see the sun twice. And the moon, you would see it once again as it swings past when you end. But look at the motion of the land mass. Its speed isn't constant. The speed would pick up and slow down. Now, if I rotate in the opposite direction, from your perspective, the landmass must push sideways, then push backward. So the speed of the vegetation would change. Now the landmass would push to your left, you'd be pushed to the right, the landmass would push to the left, and then push forward, and the moon would constantly be in front of you. So if we apply this, we can see We don't see this when we're using a 360 pan tilt head. When we use this equipment, what do we see? Well, everything rotates around your center point. Everything rotates evenly in the same position. It maintains its perspective. Everything maintains its perspective as the pan tilt head rotates. So, let's apply it to our train wheel. If I'm rotating in one direction and the protector is rotating in the same direction, you'll be able to tell. If you rotate in the opposite direction, there'll be a change in speed. It's logical. It's simple. So why did Albert Einstein say that he couldn't detect it? Someone said to me, do you know what the wave-particle duality means? I say, yes, it means Albert Einstein is making up a lot of stuff. If he can't even tell you if the Earth's rotating or not, no matter what he invents, how can I trust that? Is it just more made-up nonsense? He's just making stuff up. It has to be. So let's look at some more evidence. Evidence number 3. Right, if you see this, right, this is a long exposure of some stars. And this proves that the Earth is standing still and the stars are moving. So how can I say that? Let's have a look. If you had a rotating platform, you cut out some cardboard trees, right, and you hung up some lights in the vicinity, and if you were rotating, would you be able to tell if the stars were rotating or if you were rotating from this footage? No, you'd be able to tell if you were rotating or if the stars were moving. So what would you see from your perspective? Well, from your perspective, there would be a parallax shift between the lights. You'd be able to tell because there'd be a parallax shift. And the stars that are further away would move faster, but they would have to move at a 90-degree angle to the axis of your rotation. If you were rotating, the stars have to move at a 90-degree angle to the axis of your rotation. So therefore the stars can't move up and down like we see in this picture. The fact that you see the horizon tells you there's a problem, that the stars are moving. So how? Let's have a look. Remember, if you were moving and you were rotating, the evidence would be there. Your speed would be different. Your speed would change. How can your camera only pick up the rotation but not the sideways motion? And if you were moving, your speed won't be the same. You would slow down at this point and then you would flip around and pick up speed. So let's have a look at that again. You would slow down and that motion would be evident in your video footage. So the fact that we see the horizon tells me that the Earth is not moving, but the stars are moving. How? What does the horizon do for you? Well, if that's the horizon, your camera is lined up with Polaris. If you were rotating, how would you have to be rotating? Stop and think. Remember, we went to question things. That means you need to question and think. You'd have to rotate like this. That would be the angle of your rotation because you are lined up with Polaris. The rotation would be around your camera. And if you moved your position, or you had a friend and he moved 5,000 or 6,000 kilometers to your right or left, you can't both be rotating, yet you form the same thing. So the answer is logical. Because both of you see the horizon, it implies that the stars must be turning. You're not moving, the stars are moving. The Earth is fixed, it is not moving. So Albert Einstein, right? can't work out if the Earth is turning, but he can measure the Milky Way galaxy in light years. Do you see the problem with this? Seriously? They can tell you the measurement of the Milky Way galaxy in light years, and it's a gazillion billion light years. See the problem here? How can this be? He can't tell if the Earth is turning. Not smart enough. Look, if this aeroplane comes to you head on, these two aeroplanes are traveling at the same speed. The speed that you see the aeroplane traveling sideways, will be slower because it's further away. Just think about that. Just think about that and apply it to the Milky Way galaxy. The sun followed by the moon. It's a time lapse. So here's the video footage. Let's have a look at it. Here's the video footage. Amazing footage. Just flippin' stunning. Right, so this is in the UK. He sees the sun rise up and set within that frame of reference. Within these buildings in front of him. So where's the sun? It's in front. And where does the sun set? It sets in front of him. So here's our observation. Then the moon rises and sets where? Well, in front of him. The buildings are in front and the sun and moon rise and set in front of him. Now, that's our observation. Now let's give the observation some meaning. Because the value is in how you interpret the information. The meaning is in applying what you see. So it's distance, that's the distance, it's the building, and the time. From sunrise to sunset. Right? So the value is in how we interpret it. And where does he see the sunrise? The sun rises and sets in front of him. So what does this tell me? Well, it tells me that he's not turning. It also tells me that for you to see this, the earth must be flat. So you're going to say, well, how do I come to that conclusion from that video footage? Remember, the value is in your application. So we are told that we're living on a spinning ball. That video footage tells me that no, we are not. So how? So let's have a look. Look, if you're on a wheel and that wheel is turning, right? And there's a ball. If that ball is the sun, right? You have to face the same direction. He's not turning. For him to see the ball, the sun, he must turn. And then the buildings can't stay in front of him. Right? So let's look at that in its application. Right? So let's slow that down. Remember, he sees the same buildings. If the sun is on his right, the sun can't be in front of him. He would have to face the sun throughout the entire rotation. He's not doing that because he sees the building in front of him. So what's happening? Well, he's not turning. He's filming the sun and moon rise and set in front of him. And his frame of reference is those buildings. He sees the sun and moon turning in front of him. For him to see this, it means that the earth must be flat. Why? Because if he's in the north, what is the person in the south seeing? If the person is behind him at the same angle and degree, the person below him can never see the sun and moon rise. So listen, if you've lost your mind and you're angry, and now you want me to give you my mind, no, really? And when people get angry at you, they've already lost their mind. Reasoning with them and talking to them is the waste of time. So, Milky Way, Polaris, North Star. So if you go onto Candy's channel and have a look at her video footage, this is what you'll see. Right. We see the horizon throughout. She's not turning. right? She sees the same horizon. That tells us that she's not turning, because if she was turning, the horizon would change. Right, so is the Earth turning? No, the Earth's standing still. We've already shown it from the movement of the stars in our discussion before this. Right, so let's evaluate what's going on here. We're going to ask some questions. If you're rotating around the sun, you can't see the same set of stars the entire year round. Every 3 months, you must have a completely different set of stars to observe. You can't see the Milky Way galaxy every night if you're in the northern hemisphere, and they do. Then you can't be spinning around the ball Earth. Every 3 months, you have to have a completely new perspective of the sky. It has to change. And the speed of the galaxy, what would the speed be? It would speed up. The galaxy would speed up and slow down. And we're going to have a look at this. Right? So how can Albert Einstein say that there's no motion that you could observe? There's no way you could detect by any optical experiment if the Earth was turning or if the stars were turning. Right, so here's an image by Alan Dyer. He's AmazingSky.com. So what Alan has done, he's got some amazing images. What he's done is he's done a pan of the night sky. He takes photographs 360 degrees around him and he merges them into one image. So how does this help us? How can we use his image to understand if we are moving? Because if we are moving, remember, you'd have to be rotating like this every night as the Earth orbits the Sun. Right? So you won't be able to see this. You can't see this. Because remember, he takes a 360 pan at night around his position. So how does that help us? Well, what do you think? He wraps the 360 pan around him. It's at night time, so he's on the dark side. Would you see the Milky Way galaxy? And if that's your motion, really? I mean, freaking seriously. You believe you're living on a spinning ball flying through space?
And again, this is the scientific method to make predictions and to test them.
Look, the Earth's supposed to be rotating easterly. If you're in the northern hemisphere, your watch must read this way. In the north, it would read this way, but in the south, it would read opposite. So you can't have the same watch. You're still rotating easterly. So what does that mean? How do we apply that? Well, in his footage, the person is turning to his left. Now, this is a problem. Remember, the Earth must be turning and the Sun must be standing still. So the person can't turn to his left like this. The problem with the footage. Right, we'll deal with the time in a few minutes. So how should it look? Well, remember, the Earth must be rotating easterly. He has to turn in the opposite direction to counter that rotation. And he has to turn and keep the Sun in front of him, because he's on a spinning ball. He can't turn 360 degrees and look in the opposite direction, because then you won't be able to see the Sun. So what would the footage look like from his viewpoint, from his perspective? Right. So the Earth would have to, the South Pole would have to rotate, because he's rotating to his left to counter the rotation of the Earth, which is going easterly, that direction. he has to keep the sun in front of him, and the earth would be rotating in front of him. The landmass would be pushing forwards and backwards, the South Pole. So this will be the only place in the world where you'd get this, if it was real. But it's not real. It's a lot of garbage. Right. So there's a problem with the footage. The second thing we need to understand has got to do with time. Remember, another issue is that the Earth rotates and it's moving sideways at a phenomenal distance. So, for goodness sake, how can people ignore the Earth's orbit around the Sun at the same time as its rotation? They forget about, what about the sideways movement? So this would upset your whole filming thing. The footage would slow down and speed up. I mean, what is wrong with these people? I mean, this person is so busy saying that flat earth was in denial. No, he's just as dumb as a sack of bricks. Let's have a look at time. You've got two people in the South Pole. Their time can't be the same. The person closer to the North Pole, right, will be rotating, look at his time, and the person further out from the North Pole would overtake, so his time would be completely different. So how come they don't look at this? Forget the midnight sun. Show us this. Now there's something else that you need to understand. That this guy who's shouting the odds at flat earthers and saying we're in denial, when he's a complete moron, is time. Remember, to watch the midday sun, the shadow has to move from the one side in the South Pole to the other. While that happens, what has to happen? And they will be making a big fuss about this, but you never hear about this amazing phenomena that should happen, but doesn't happen. Is as the Earth rotates, the shadow got to move from the one side to the other side. Remember, so as the Earth orbits the Sun, the shadow has to move over the South Pole. You'd have one person having sunrise and another person just a few miles away having sunset. This would be happening all year round. We don't have this. Look, the South Pole, just a lot of garbage. A common sense, your watch tells you that there is no South Pole. It's as simple as that. So,
and again, this is the scientific method to make predictions and to test them.
I'll be looking at some footage that was filmed in the northern hemisphere near the North Pole. And this is the footage. We know that the guy used a wide angle lens. So there's some distortion. So we're going to just counter that. Make the horizon flat. He's using a wide angle. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at speed, light, and the motion. You see, what is actually going on in this footage? Is the Earth spinning, or is the man turning around? Now look at the light on the ocean. Look where the sun is, look at the shadows. And look how the mountains and everything rotates around the man. See, there's a problem. You see, if this man was in a spinning ball, the shadows and the mountain and the motion wouldn't look like this. What's happening is the sun is turning around the man, is orbiting around the man, and the man is simply turning his camera and pointing it towards the sun. So the earth isn't spinning. The sun is orbiting above. That's why the sun is reflecting on the water as it is. Look at the shadows. So to help us understand this, imagine a train wheel. Right, the wheel turns on its axis. It's got a shaft, and the shaft is fixed off center. Right, so the shaft moves forward, it pushes the wheel, and the shaft comes back and pulls the
the wheel around. Okay, so the wheel rotates and the shaft is off center. So we're not gonna, don't focus on where the shaft is pointing. Look at the wheel and the position of the shaft. And so what do you see? Right? So basically this is what should be happening with the man who's filming the footage. So do you see there's a couple of issues already that should be happening in that video footage that's not happening. So if we put a man on top of that shaft, the first issue is as the man turns, he'd be crossing the light source, so the blue line in the middle, right, where the sun is. He'd be crossing over the sunlight, backwards, left and right. But in the footage, the light is actually following him. Another issue is, look at the wheel itself. Think about his frame of reference. So from his frame of reference, the wheel should move out in front of him. The horizon can't stay the same. The horizon should rise up and move around him. Right? And watch, he should be moving over the blue line. You see how the blue line, which would be the reflection of the sunlight. Because the sun is fixed. So the issue is the light itself, right, which would be the blue line. From his perspective, everything would be standing, he'd be standing still and the wheel would be turning around him. So the light would be swinging from his left and to his right, and the landmass should be pushing out in front of him and rotating back around him. And we don't see this in the video clip. You see, what we see in the video clip is that everything is moving in perfect position around him. Another issue is, look at, there's arrows here, so don't look at them, just look at the blue arrow, left and right. You see, as the person moves backwards, he also has to move to his right. If, in other words, if he moves back 1,000 kilometers, he has to swing to his right 2,000 kilometers. So his frame of reference wouldn't be turning around him, it would be pushing and sliding out towards his right. So, for example, the orange frame is where it started. As he moves around, because he's off center, remember? The landmass would push to his right. Watch the blue arrow on the right, left and right. Do you understand? And the footage doesn't show this. The footage, it's constant. So he's turning. He's not spinning around. He's not spinning off center. Do you understand? So from his perspective, the landmass would push to the right. And it's not. It's actually rotating around him. So the Earth isn't spinning. The man is turning and he's filming the sun, which is orbiting overhead. The second issue is we're going to look at the gold arrows. You see, if he's spinning off center, now watch, the gold arrows would point towards him, right? Because he's off center. So everything in front of him would actually be turning in front of him because he's off center. So watch the arrows. Now they'll turn and face the other way. They're turning in front of him. So if he was spinning around a fixed axis, remember, for everything to turn around him, he'd have to be standing at the North Pole, exactly on the North Pole, so that everything turns perfectly around him. Or, so Earth is standing still, and he's just turning, filming the sun orbiting overhead. So this is what we see in the footage. He's turning, and he's filming the sun, which is turning overhead. So look at the arrows, the gold arrows. They all keep the relative position. As he turns, everything stays fixed in its position to his frame of reference. So it's quite simple, really. Look at the sunlight on the water. I mean, it's just so obvious, you know. I mean, the Earth's flat and he's turning. There's nothing complicated, nothing hard to understand in this. Okay, so he's turning, right? So everything would be relative to his position because he's turning, right? This is what we see. He's looking at the sun. He's turning. For this to happen and the Earth was turning, he'd have to be standing exactly dead center of the spinning Earth at the North Pole. And we know he's not. He's somewhere in the northern hemisphere, but he's not at the North Pole. Okay, so everything would turn around him and keep the relative position fixed to his position. Right, and that's what we see in the video footage. Okay, whereas if he's off center, right, this is what should happen. You see, the shadows and the light and things in the far distance would have to move faster the further away they are from him. It's actually so simple. And then they would change their position and things in the front of him would be moving slower and things further away would be moving faster because he's off center and he's turning on a ball. So if you speed it up, that's what it would look like. And that's not what we're seeing in the video footage. Right? Everything would be spinning in front of him. Whereas what's happening is everything's rotating around him. So, right, slow down again so that you get it. Okay. But in the footage, you see, if you look at the footage again, that's what's happening. So he's turning, he's looking at the sun, and the sun is orbiting around him. Okay, let's look at the footage again now. Look at the light. Look at the shadows. The sun's not 150 million kilometers away. It's above him and it always stays above him. Watch when the sun moves away. Look how it still hits the surface. That's because of perspective. The sun's always above this guy's head. He's just turning, following the sun. Right? And watch when the sun hits the water. Remember, if he was off center, he'd be moving across the reflection, backwards and forwards. And that's not happening. Right, so it's simple enough. So if he's turning, the shadows would be elongated and they would swing at 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night, late. It would swing the opposite way. Do you understand? In other words, the shadows should cross over like this. And they'd always be elongated. You can't escape that. And we don't see this in the footage. So if he's off center, the shadows further away would be spinning faster. You see? Watch the shadows. Remember, everything further away, it would be spinning faster from his perspective. All orbiting around their own fixed axis. Right? Does that make sense? Just look at the footage, look at the animation. And I mean, I didn't cheat here, just put the light source out, and it is what it is, you know. This is not difficult to understand. Look, you don't need maths for the stuff, really. It's just, it's logical. And we're going to get into a bit of maths later on, and I'll show you how people cheat and trick things. Right, so from a shadow point of view, remember he's off center. He's got his frame of reference, he's looking at the sun. When he gets furthest away, the sunlight can't light up the whole ground and be above and light up the surface? That's what would happen. You see, that's not what we see in the video footage. Look at this guy. His camera's locked down and he's filming the sun. He's in the same area. He's in the northern hemisphere, close to the North Pole. He's offset around the orbit of the sun, and the sun is overhead. Look at the shadows. How can the sun come back and now move back over his head? And look at the light on the water in the background. The Earth's flat. And the sun is orbiting above this person filming. Right? We just have to learn to look. And this is what we see. He's off center and the sun is orbiting around him. And in his frame of reference, that's what he sees. So if he wasn't turning and watching the sun, the shadows would behave the same as we see in the video footage. We just have to learn to look and think. You know, the education system doesn't teach us how to think. It teaches us what to think, not how to think and reason. And if you do think and reason, well, then you're going to be in trouble. You know, that's just the way the world is. You know, they're going to call you an idiot and a fool and all the rest. But really, you know, we need to think and reason for ourselves. We need to stop trusting the people who rule the system, because we just cattle to them. You know, they kill us and slaughter us and abuse us, and we just allow it to happen because we trust them. And they're the biggest lot of scumbag liars there is. You know, they lie about everything. So use your eyes and think. Just look. The sun's moving above his head. That's because the Earth's not spinning and the sun's orbiting above the person who filmed this. Okay, so now moving on. I mean, this bit is just so silly. I mean, if the Earth's a spinning ball, people all over the world will be spinning at different speeds. So how can people film time-lapse video footage and the sun's moving the same speed? You see, the guy at the equator, his time-lapse will show the sun spinning at a phenomenal speed. It will rise slowly and pick up speed and then set slowly, where the guy at the North Pole, it would be more constant. And another thing is, you know, they'll tell you if you're at the North Pole, you won't see or feel the Earth spin. That's nonsense. If it's turning at the equator, there's a turn at the North Pole. The North Pole can't just stand still. You know, it's silly. It's junk. It's physically impossible. If the Earth's spinning, it's spinning everywhere. At the North Pole and at the equator. You can't say, no, at the North Pole it's not turning. It's rubbish. Another issue is the sun. Remember, this guy is turning. He's off center. Right? So the landmass will be orbiting around him. So the landmass will be pushing back and forward. Can't keep the same distance. He'd be moving over the light. And another issue is the sun, from his frame of reference, would be zigzagging. Now people say, no, the sun's 150 million kilometers away. You won't see it move. The point is, with reference to his frame of reference, which is the horizon, how would the sun move with the horizon? That's the issue. The sun would zigzag. So when I look at this, some people say, no, it won't zigzag. And they're saying, well, the man is turning 360. Oh. Okay, so we're just going to simplify this. You see, the sun would actually zigzag backwards and forwards, and we're going to prove it. We're going to look at the arguments and simplify it. All right, so it's all these things. The light, the landmass pushing forward. Remember, everything would be turning in front of him, and the sun would be zigzagging in front of him. We put all this together, we understand that the man is not living on a spinning ball. He's standing on a fixed earth, and the sun is orbiting him. In other words, go into your kitchen, get a plate. Put your finger on the plate and turn the plate around. your hand isn't turning 360 degrees. Your hand's facing the same direction. How do we know this? Well, because if your hand turned, you'd break your wrist. So you're using your hand faces the same direction, you're in the same position, and you're turning the plate. So some people will say, yeah, but the hand is fixed to the plate. So if the plate turns, your arm and your hand must move 90 degrees. Well, it's not like that. You'd break your arm and your hand. Your hand isn't turning 90 degrees. You can't add on the 90 degrees and then minus it off again. Another way to illustrate this point is the person is standing on the same side. So a person who's on the plate looking at you is not turning 360 if he's facing the same direction. He doesn't need to turn 360 degrees, and we're going to prove it in another way. Like, for example, on this train wheel, the shaft doesn't rotate 360, it's just facing the same direction. Its position X and Y is changed, that's all. Because if the shaft did turn 360, the engine would break. The whole mechanism would break. Think of a plotter that the architects use, or a laser cutter. The laser cutter doesn't turn, but it can cut out a circle. So what's happening, its position X and Y is changing. It's the same thing as the man who's standing on the earth if it was spinning looking at the sun. His position X and Y is changing in space. The cutter, the laser head, doesn't need to rotate. Okay? That makes sense? So don't get caught up in this, the man has to turn, because he simply doesn't. It's nonsense. Okay, so let's look at the footage again. Right. Just look. It's simple. Look at the light, look at the shadows. Right, and we see that the man is turning. That's why the mountains and everything around him is keeping its fixed relative position to him, because he's turning. The earth is not turning. Remember, for him to turn like this and everything has to be in perfect relation to him, he'd have to be standing dead center at the North Pole, and he's not. So what this shows is that the earth's not spinning and the man is turning. Look at the light. Oh, this is a giveaway. Look how the light reflects on the snow in front of him, right in front of him. Maybe if this was a ball, the light would be behind the other side. The light can't bend around and illuminate the snow in front of this man. It's just silly. Look at the clouds, flat. Land is flat. The earth is flat and is not spinning. And it is what it is. You know, it's hard for some people to accept. You know, when people build movie sets, they build everything miniature. And why? When they build it, they build everything flat and vertical. It's because this is a miniature of the real world we live in. So that when the camera pans down and the camera moves, that's how we see things. It's flat. The water level is flat. So on movie sets, the water is always level, the buildings are always vertical. And the lighting, they light the sets the same way as we see lighting in the real world. Because it's flat. You don't see a curve on this set. Because the producer would throw the production out. He'd say this is nonsense. So we live on a flat earth. It's not moving and not spinning. It's just that we've been brainwashed.
And again, this is the scientific method to make predictions and to test them.
Now, because some folks didn't understand it in the last one, what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to handle it from a totally different angle. So if you watch the other one, stick with me, because there's extra information towards the end of the clip that I'd like to share with you. So let's have a look. Is this filmed from a man on a spinning ball? So let's look. So remember, the sun is fixed at the Earth center and the Earth is leaning over at 23.4 degrees, and the man, he's turning in a circle. and he would be forming the sun. So what would he see? Would he see that sequence that we saw? So let's look closer at the man and the Earth if he was on a spinning ball. You see, if the man was on a spinning ball, he's spinning around the North Pole, which is the red arrow. The mountains would rotate around him. You see the numbers rotate around him. But he's always looking forward. He's looking in the same direction. He's not looking behind him. He's facing the same direction. He cannot turn around and form behind him. Right? It's easy to understand. And now look at his angle. You see, he's leaning over backwards, then he leans over sideways, then he leans over forwards, sideways and backwards and so forth. In other words, if we connect that video footage to his orbit, this is what he would be seeing. So he's turning, he's leaning over, now he's upright, and now he leans over to his right, left, and he's upright again, and the sun's on the horizon. Then he leans over to his right. So this footage is vertical with the man. From this angle, I'm just showing it to you from this angle in the animation. So now the issue arises. You see, if we center that image and we lock that image down on the horizon, what is the sun doing? Now look. See, the sun is simply moving up and then down. So the sun is moving up and down. Right? So the sun, if we can use another term, is zigzagging up and down. So what is causing that zigzag? So I'll say no. What's causing that is the tilt, the 23.4 degree tilt of the Earth, because the man is leaning backwards and now he's leaning forwards. Then he leans backwards and forwards, that's what's causing the tilt. Well, then you have a big problem. You see, the man, if the tilt, if that is caused by leaning backwards and leaning forwards, you see, he's leaning the same distance to the left and to the right. How can he only register his backwards and forwards motion? You see, the North Pole is in the center and he's spinning around the North Pole. It would have to register motion left, backward, forward, his complete motion. You can't just film the up and down motion because he's not just moving backwards and forwards. He's moving in a circle. So, the sun then, if he was on a spinning ball, should move in a circle. Now listen carefully. Some people, even in the flat earth community, don't want you to look at this video footage and analyze it. They'll say, no, the sun is too far away for it to show any motion. The point is, it is showing motion in his video clip. The sun is moving up and down. So you cannot argue then that the sun is so far away that it doesn't show any motion. The sun's motion is registered, it's up and down. So that argument goes out the window. So now I've created an animation exactly what the man would see. Now I've locked a camera onto him. This is the same motion that we saw earlier, and that's simply what the cameraman would see. So the cameraman would see the sun moving in front of him like this. And the earth and the mountains is turning around the man. The numbers there, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're orbiting, they're rotating around him. This is not what we're seeing in the footage. We do not see this. What we are seeing is a man who's turning, and he's filming the sun orbiting around his position. So I've lined up when the sun is on the horizon, and he's slightly off-centered. So the sun goes up and the sun goes down. So now what is causing the sun to move up and down? See, the sun is moving up and down. So how's that work? What is causing that? Well, it's the sun orbiting around him. Now when I look at this in detail, you see the sun's motion is in a straight line. Watch. The sun's path is in straight lines. If I take those lines out the way, you just don't notice it. So the man's rotating 360 degrees. Every time it rotates, the sun goes up and down. It forms a triangle. Each side is 12 hours. So each triangle is 24 hours. The base of that triangle is 360 degrees. So over a week, that would make it 2,520. Now if you read your Bible, you'll understand that 7 times is equal to 2,520 in Revelation. But that's another issue. So now if I take those triangles, and I put them in a circle, I get this image. I get this pattern. So the top triangle would be a day, right? And each line would represent a week. Right. So it's not difficult to understand. This is the image that many of the people use in secret societies used to represent the sun. And so why? Well, now if I take that image, the sequence of the sun turning, if I take that sequence of the sun up and down and I put it in an orbit around this man, now there's no trickery here. I've just simply taken that image and I'm rotating it around. Now watch how the sun follows those lines. So after each rotation, the sun now is on the next line and now makes a new triangle. So what does this teach us? That there is perfect precision in the motion of the sun and the moon and the stars. That there is a creator. That is undeniable that there is a creator. And they're trying to hide that from us. You see, they give us nonsense that the earth is a spinning ball. But we know that all the trees grow towards the sunlight. So how does this work? This tree's at the equator. 6 months later, when the sun's on the opposite side, how do trees grow towards the sunlight? I'll tell you, gravity. Gravity makes the tree grow upright. The trees, plants grow towards the light. How does that model and the plants, nature that we see around us, how does it fit onto the ball? It does not. We are simply being lied to. They don't want you to see the perfection in creation, because there's a creator, and that is undeniable. So if I look at the pattern in plants, you'll see that plants spiral out when they grow. And this spiral pattern that we see in plants perfectly matches the sun that is orbiting above the plants. You see, the plants are all at the same angle to the sun. The sun's above them, and they all spiral outward. If we take our time and we look at the creation, and it's awesome, we'll start to see the creator's hand. Look at this tree. This tree is split, and it's split in a spiral because it's twisting, because the sun is orbiting overhead. So we just look at the patterns that we have in creation, and we put them together, we will see that it all makes sense because the sun is orbiting above the flat earth. The path of the sun and the moon is overhead on the flat earth. We need to take time to look at creation and to thank the Creator for creating us, and to open our eyes and to show us, and to teach us about His creation.
And again, this is the scientific method to make predictions and to test them.
That means we need to also test the current examples of a 24-hour sun in Antarctica for authenticity. It has just been shown that the globe model cannot possibly replicate any of the 24 hours footage we see. But if each example we look at can be shown to be faked from Antarctica, then that should speak volumes to anyone with a working mind. We will get into how a circling sun or light source in Antarctica could be possible on a flat Earth later, but knowing that the opposite has been documented by various people, while also seeing fake footage from those claiming that it is real, is just more proof against a 24-hour sun, and should also logically raise extreme suspicion with any future claims and footage.
And again, this is the scientific method to make predictions and to test them.
Let's watch this footage first and see if you notice what the issues are. The first thing to point out is the white box with the time appears to be overlaid and not original to the film. The second thing to notice is that this footage is simply reversed footage from the north. Notice how the camera lens is clear of snow, then within a 4-minute period, it is full of snow and ice. Then we see the amount of snow on the lens shrink in size. We also see people appear to walk backwards. Watch again. When we play the video in reverse, only then does it make sense. We begin to see snow build up more and more on the lens until we see someone come out and clean the lens off. The opposite would not have happened. Let's watch both forwards and backwards one more time, and it becomes obvious that it's simply reversed footage of the northern midnight sun. This next video has been shared by many so-called flat earth debunkers, but once again, logic and a keen eye exposes it for what it truly is, a fake.
So who's Robert Schwartz?
Robert Schwartz. Schwartz spent time at the South Pole. This is
How do you know Robert Schwartz?
How do you know the guys in the video that you did? You don't know them either. So
no, I don't.
We're
But
at the same.
They actually have a timestamp. They have dates. They have coordinates. You have a random video that's moving in circles where I can already see cuts in the clouds because it's moving at high speed. So I'm just saying to you,
standard flat Earth denialism.
How do you know Robert Schwartz?
Gotta lie to Flurf.
Okay, so if you're going to be disingenuous
You
with
are
my critique,
a liar,
why should I
Sean.
take your evidence?
You are a liar.
Well, Michael, I hope you had a good conversation.
You're running from the evidence.
No one's running.
Contradicted your dirt pizza.
Are you ready to burst into laughter watching a globe believer lose their chill over flat Earth theories? Stay tuned. Meet Alex. He's a proud globe believer. And today he's about to spiral into a cosmic meltdown.
Your ridiculous lie of flat Earth. No, Sean.
Let's see the video.
No, there's no. It's playing right
edit.
now. You are refusing to play it to your people.
No, we had it on the screen.
It
We had it on
absolutely
screen. This is it. We already watched it.
This
we
is
watched it go in a
impossible
360.
This is 5 days.
We
5
watched
days.
it go.
Yep. This destroys flat Earth. You asked why hasn't it been blasted around? I don't know why.
Here's the first critical question.
It's been there for 7 years, Sean.
Michael, here's the first critical question. Can you slow down? Slow down for a minute.
It contradicts your idiot
Slow down.
idea
Slow
of
down.
flat Earth.
You need Jesus, man.
And your belief that the Earth is flat and that the
Okay, I'm just gonna have to mute you since you can't control yourself. I'm looking at this video that you put up here. Okay. Where you said it's 5 days uninterrupted. Shake your head, yes or no. Where's the guy coming out to change the battery? What kind of battery can go for 5 days uninterrupted? 120 hours? Where can you tell me where the video is where he's coming out to change this battery out of this camera? Do you know that the batteries lose 90% of their lifespan in sub-zero Antarctic weather? So all you got is a simple video.
Right.
You don't know who Robert
ready
Schwartz
for the
is.
answers? Are you going to pretend to let me answer now?
No, I'm asking you genuine questions. Can you control yourself and talk normal now?
Yeah, it's a time lapse. You don't know how time lapses work?
Esse vídeo hoje, tá? Mais vídeo falso, tá, galera? Olha só. Agora vamos ao vídeo original. O vídeo original já não está cortado embaixo. O vídeo original não tem aquelas fotinhas do Carlos Machado para te distrair, né? Da ring light. Esse é o vídeo original, tá? Eu vou passar ele todo para depois. Eu vou passar o vídeo todo para a gente perceber algumas coisas. Lembrando, tirei o som também porque tinha uma musiquinha. Importante é a imagem, né? Vamos dar uma olhada. Vamos ver se você encontra o erro, tá? Jogo dos 7 erros aqui. Vamos lá. Vamos ver o vídeo todo. Vai o sol. Vai o sol lindo e maravilhoso, ó. Maravilha, hein? Vai vendo, hein? Vou mostrar o vídeo todo. Percebam que não há movimentação de nada, de pessoas, de veículos. Não há absolutamente nada acontecendo ali, ó. Ó. Vamos lá. Não há movimentações nenhuma. São 5 dias de time-lapse, você não vê movimentação de nada. Né? Não tem nada. Até porque com essa... Olha só. Eu vou mostrar 2 erros, tá? Poderia mostrar 7, mas vou mostrar 2. Movimentação de pessoas 0, de veículos 0, durante 5 dias direto. Ó, que maravilha. Parece tudo lindo, não parece? Vamos lá. Vai o solzinho, 5 dias, galera. Pensando o quê? Eu quero mostrar o vídeo todo para depois dizer que eu não mostrei, tá? Vai ele, vai o sol. Vamos lá. Isso aí, perfeito, né? Sol 24 horas, filmado numa porrada só, sem edição, sem nada. Não é isso que está aparecendo? Aquelas coisinhas que o Carlos Machado botava embaixo não é à toa, não, é para distrair, tá? Para te distrair, para você não ver a realidade, entendeu? Leandro divulgou mais esse vídeo. Aí tá lá, beleza. Deixa eu terminar, vai até o final. (2017) Beleza? Aí já está começando de novo. Agora vamos lá. Sei que é difícil perceber o erro, tá? Sei que é difícil. Mas eu quero que vocês foquem nesse objeto aí e no Sol, tá? Tá vendo onde o Sol tá? E esse objeto que tá aqui, ó. Tô botando a setinha ali para você ver. E você presta atenção no solo aqui, ó. Tá? No solo. Vamos lá. Vamos lá. Espera ele dar uma volta. De um dia para o outro, tá? De um dia para o outro, o solo já vai estar completamente diferente, tá? O solo já vai estar desenhado com as linhas de Nazca. Já vai ter um super desenho ali. Mostrando que foi feito numa época e depois em outra época, e não em 24 horas, ó. Vai chegando. Ó. Olha a diferença do solo, isso em 24 horas, de um dia para o outro. São inúmeras as diferenças. Isso significa que ele fez um vídeo numa época e colou o outro vídeo em outra época. O solo já está completamente diferente. Como eu falei, em 5 dias você não viu nada ali, pessoas, nada. Em momento nenhum. Olha o solo aqui embaixo, gente. Olha isso aí. Vou botar as duas fotos juntos, do dia anterior e desse dia agora. Olha as duas fotos aí. Agora vamos em mais uma. Eu podia ir em várias, tá? Mas eu vou em mais uma. Isso de um dia para o outro. Vamos voltar aqui agora e vamos ver mais uma parte. Agora aqui é legal. Aqui. Presta atenção, vou até voltar um pouquinho, peraí. Para ficar o sol no meio ali certinho. Pronto, o sol está no meio certinho. Primeiro dia, tá? Tá ali, ó. Olha como é que está o solo aí, ó, entre esses dois objetos. Agora você está entre esse objeto e entre esse objeto. Olha como é que está o solo. Ok? Agora vamos ver em 24 horas. Outra parte já, tá? Vai virar ali, ó. O sol vai girar. Vou parar o sol no mesmo ponto, né? 24 horas depois, no mesmo ponto onde ele estava da última vez. Ele passou ali agora. Vamos lá. Vamos ver se teve mudança no solo. De um dia para o outro. O seu sol já está desenhado com as linhas de Nazca. Parei. Olha aí. O solo já está todo desenhado. As linhas de Nazca já estão desenhadas. Isso aqui foi feito, cara, uma filmagem, depois, meses depois, outra filmagem, tá? Meses depois, o solo já está completamente feito. Vou mostrar as duas imagens aí, ó, para vocês verem. Isso aqui foi feito tempos depois e depois colado. Porque de um dia para o outro, e digo mais, né? Eu mostrei ele durante 5 dias, não tinha movimentação de nada. E um está todo limpo e o outro já está cheio de linhas. Como se fosse a linha de... Veio os extraterrestres ali e desenhou tudo, de um dia para o outro. E se eu continuar aqui mostrando as divergências do solo, a gente vai ficar até amanhã. Só que o vídeo vai ficar muito longo.
Then we get into the more technical aspects of it. You know, if you look at the beginning of the video, it's obviously the sky is above the horizons like full daylight for the most part. And then you get to the end of the last, day or two, it gets very dark, even the last few days. And, we look at that, that's considered would be considered the blue hour. It's between nautical and civil twilight, usually between 4 and 8 degrees below the horizon. Well, this sun is it's dropping about 0.25 degrees a day, according to the globe model. So it's dropping about 2 degrees, gets down about 2 degrees above the horizon. And if we look at the chart here, between 4 and 8 degrees would be like the blue hour between civil and nautical twilight. So how is the sun being shown in the blue hour when it's 2 degrees above the horizon and it should actually be 4 to 8 degrees below the horizon? It just kind of shows that, perhaps the actual real sun has already set and they're editing in this other sun to appear that there's this illusion of a 24-hour sun. But even when we look into the geometry of it, the rotation and the movement of the sun. It doesn't work with the actual geometry of an actual globe model.
Aí o Leandro teve a cara de pau de dizer assim, não, é porque eles fazem. Teve aquele lance também da montanha que estava coberta de gelo, e a outra, no outro dia a montanha já estava sem gelo nenhum, né? Que também é uma filmagem.
Watching this film, nothing to do with this foolishness of a flat Earth, but I'm watching this film, and I get around, minute whatever, and I nudge Paul. I said, Paul, this movie just disproved the flat Earth.
It's the middle of summer. Check the time. It's just after 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock midnight though.
He documents it. You can watch him.
You've been destroyed. Your flat Earth lie has been exposed and laid bare to everybody.
All right, brother, you can't control yourself. You're gone tonight, buddy.
Oh, the frustration. As he dives into a frenzied rant about science, satellites, and centuries of astronomical research, you can't help but chuckle.
Your directions behind the mountains, I don't think it's a good scientific representation. And for those who don't know, I asked this guy who made this video if I could take it to a video forensics guy. I said, I'll pay for it all. I just want your permission. And he didn't give me permission to do that.
here's the sun, December 7th, around 11 in the morning. And we're just exposing the fakest video made on the supposed 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Totally fake video. And we're just showing you right now, look at the sun. We're looking through tree branches. Does it ever disappear, like completely? No, you can see this is a particularly wide branch. It's about a foot wide almost. And look at that, you can still see the sun there, okay? It doesn't completely disappear. And let's just maybe go over here where there's other branches, smaller ones. Okay, this is really important because you'll see when we compare it to the fake video, the sun gets obscured by the tiniest little things and it completely disappears from the sky.
Turns out that the image was doctored by the Discovery Channel itself for a docu-fictional piece.
Said the night wind to the little lamb, do you see what I see? Way up in the sky, little lamb, do you see what I see? A star, dancing in the night with a tail as big as a kite, with a tail as big as a kite. Said the little lamb to the shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear?
Clearly, this shows us, if anything, that trickery is afoot. And this is not just one of the months. This is not just 2 of the months. It's not just 5 of the months. This is every month that they have a webcam video for. They have edited and cut out part of the day. And these are during the main months, which are January, December, and November, the southern summer. In this video, let's watch this green flag down below. You'll see it starting around maybe 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Rotates around to about 2 o'clock and then resets. Rotate around, reset. This is obviously a lie. This is obviously not what's going on. Why don't we get to see the sun do a 360-degree turn around the southern continent? Now remember, this would be pretty good evidence and proof of the globe, because it doesn't work on a flat Earth to see the sun go around the southern continent. However, on a globe, it is something that should be really evident and should be seen in every single summer video from the South Pole. But again, watch the flag. It'll start around 8 o'clock, rotate around until it gets to 2, and then reset and start over. This should be a huge eye-opener. Should be something that screams to you fraud, fake, set up, contrived.
A docu-fictional piece.
So I emailed the head of the Australian Antarctic Division there, and she wrote back and basically said that the webcams at their Antarctic stations are subject to very limited internet connections, and frequent interruptions and dropouts are commonplace as the outages due to weather are extreme. Very slow bandwidth means we are unable to have constant streaming video. The time lapses you see on our site are stitched together from photos generated every 15 minutes, and basically saying that there'd be no way that they could have data from a whole entire day. Just taking a look at Mawson Station's current time lapse, for example, the images are being recorded overnight, and nothing appears to be missing. If you do notice anything absent on any of our webcams, please let us know the specifics so we can investigate any potential faults or even maybe restore images where possible. So I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Why don't you have complete day's videos? You're cutting them yourself. So I wrote back, and she responded with, "Hi, Jaren, I've spoken to our web manager, who was not available earlier. He let me know that some frames are actually missing by design. Because the webcams were set up so long ago, he had forgotten about a script he had written to omit frames that are mostly all black to save on space, bandwidth, and overall quality of the video. Chunks of time with just black screens are a bit of a waste," he said, "that if there is any reasonable light source in the image, then the image would not be omitted, and that the missing frames are based only on the amount of light in the image. That if there is any reasonable light source in the image, then the image would not be omitted, and that the missing frames are based only on the amount of light in the image. Thanks for your email. We will now add this to the FAQ for future webcam visitors." And if you can't tell, this is complete and total horseshit, because what we were just looking at was the summer months when there is no night. It's supposed to be 24 hours of sun going around. Why are those images omitted? So I said, "Jen, I still think you aren't quite understanding what I'm saying. If you have time-lapse webcam footage from the Amundsen Scott base, then why is there no 24-hour sun video? You guys have cut and edited every single video. Why? It makes no sense with your answers below about black screens. Please explain. For example, watch all videos for November, December, January, 2011, 2012, 2013. And the most recent email, which came earlier this week, said, "Hi, Jaren, the Amundsen Scott Station is an American facility, and for all inquiries regarding their webcam footage, you need to contact them. The information and explanation that Jen provided below still applies to ours. Kind regards, Denise." So I have emailed all the people at the NOAA and the NSF, and we were waiting to see if they've got anything new to say besides just the same nonsense responses. So again, I've sped up this camera footage just a little bit to get you some more views of these time-lapse footages, but it's all much of the same. You'll see shadows going halfway around and then resetting. You can watch the time in every single video to see that never is a whole day played. Sometimes it actually appears that the shadow comes very close to doing some sort of a 360-degree turn, but regardless, you can look at the time and see that at minimum, 8 to 10 hours is cut out of every video. So how could the shadow even be coming close to doing a 360 if you're cutting out a third or more of the day? Again, this is good evidence here. If you watch the purple flag start out very long, then it gets short as it goes in front of you, and then becomes long as it resets and starts over. So as I said, even if you watch that little igloo on the left, it may look really close to a 360-degree turn, but by looking at the time, 10 hours are cut out of that day. That just tells me that these have been edited. So these are not accurate portrayals of reality. Again, the biggest and most obvious point here is that if it was a globe that we live on, then what they are trying to show us would be 1, easy, 2, occur daily, and 3, plainly evident. And it is none of those. It looks like they're trying to cut it up. It looks like they're trying to portray something that isn't actually happening. And it looks like they're trying to fool us. Let's pay attention to something here. Watch this shadow as it rotates towards the upper left of the screen, and notice that the shadow in this video coincides with the sun, not the opposite as would be required by, physics and optics. The shadow should be opposite of the sun, not rotating in tandem with it. Again, more evidence of extreme trickery, extreme editing. They're simply trying to sell us something that isn't reality.
A docu-fictional piece.
Bob, I just put a link in the chat right here. If you go to that link, I was looking here the other day, and I actually went there to get a video I've seen before, and I noticed something new. I said, wait a second, why does this site show a different site thing on the right? And I said, oh my goodness, they added January through March of 2016, April through June 2016. And I said, okay, now they've definitely faked it. If you click on one of those, Bob, go to go to January through March 2016, and then press play. They did the same thing again. And I mean, that's ridiculous. If even at this point, they still are not going to show shadows doing a 360. You'll see that the shadow goes around halfway and then clicks over in there. They still can't even show the sun doing a 360. So I mean, unless this is a psyop or something, I don't understand why they would even put this out, because it's a joke. It's an absolute joke that you tell us there's a 24-hour sun that goes around, and this is the South Pole. This isn't Mawson Station. This isn't, somewhere else. This isn't Ross. This is, Munson Scott at the 90-degree mark, and they can't even show it. It just, they cut the film. And if you watch the time, look at the time up top. It's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 5, 6.
Jeez.
So what the hell are they doing? So it's just pathetic.
Yeah. And all this is because they were trying to say bandwidth. I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it should be tropical down there, honestly. In a globe Earth scenario, that place should be freaking tropical.
Yeah, it's got the sun just beating on it. It's angled right at the sun, and it's 375 Earth diameters closer to the sun than it is for our summer. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's absolutely no excuse for that. That is ridiculous.
In my last video, someone who is probably a globe troll left a comment about the alleged 24-hour Antarctic sun and a link to a video supposedly proving its existence. I clicked on the link, but I totally forgot that I debunked this video years ago in my last channel. I guess my memory isn't as good as it used to be. But I'm guessing quite a few of you have also forgotten about it or have never seen it. A big thanks to Flat Earth and Coffee's channel, who recently shared my old video. If you haven't subscribed to his channel, you must, and the link will be in the description. So what you're watching is the alleged proof of the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. It's a 24-hour time-lapse appearing to show the sun traveling around in a big circle and staying above the horizon for 24 hours. It looks pretty good. The shadows match well. The lighting seems right. The video seems pretty convincing. And the clouds don't repeat 24 hours later like they did in this video, where the exact same cloud pattern repeats a day later. It's crazy how much effort goes into faking these videos. Remember the saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But maybe George W. Bush said it better.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Anyways, but in this case, the clouds don't repeat 24 hours later. Instead, we're going to be looking at the sun with the same exact sun flares that repeat 24 hours later. I've synced the two segments of the video together. Remember, the bottom video is supposed to be 24 hours later. The clouds are different, and the lighting slightly changes, but the sun flares on the camera are exactly the same. I have freezed a few frames so that you can look closer. I'm convinced these repeating sun flares are impossible, as the slightest variation in angles and atmospheric conditions would alter the sun flares. But I could still see someone plausibly claiming that the repetition of the same sun flares over an approximate 12-hour period is purely a coincidence. Okay, I highly doubt it, but I can see the very slight possibility. But there is one more thing that repeats, which I refer to as the coup de grace, that proves that this video is indeed a fake. Here's the clip in question. Did you see it? Here it is again. Do you see the lighting artifact flash on and off at the same exact time? Here it is again at a very slow speed. The flashes are exact and at the same video frames. That's impossible. There is no excuse. This video is another fake. There you go, another blatant fakery that took some serious effort to fool you into believing in their globe model. How many times will they be able to fool you? Thanks for watching.
I'm going to ignore them and just say that anyone in a right state of mind would just be crazy excited not only to go to Antarctica, but to actually figure out the truth of what the sun does there.
Riddle me this, Will. Why does every example that you can find involve fakery and cutting the time-lapse short? Why do we have several testimonies and footage of it setting instead? Why so many other deceptions and scams have been involved with Antarctica in the past? Given the fact that we have already proven that the globe model cannot physically replicate the 24-hour sun footage as well, the best logical conclusion here is that if the midnight sun is recorded during the final experiment, then it is a deception of some sort, knowingly or unknowingly by some of those involved. We will look into the very slim possibilities of there being a real 24-hour sun there. But if there is, then all the evidence is telling us that it must be a very specialized and localized event that only occurs in certain areas on our flat Earth and only at certain times. Personally, I think the whole trip is going to get canceled. If not, then they will use known technology that can simulate a sun or reflect the real sun. They may also use known technology that can create clouds and overcast skies. The possible outcomes are of many. It is theoretically possible to align a light source with a setting sun to make it appear to circle and become aligned again at sunrise, especially when 24-hour sunlight is predicted in both models anyways. The likelihood of deception at some level is extremely high, though, because everything given to us up until this point has been proven to be invalid. If you really want to use Antarctica, then use the landmass itself, not the sky. If you travel east along the ice wall, the globe demands to turn right continually. Flat Earth demands you turn left continually and for much longer, just as several old expeditions and detailed analysis of modern-day boat races suggest. Just as tsunami waves physically prove anyways, as we will see. Plane routes and emergency landings, time zones, undersea cable layouts, etc. also reveal the AE map and other circle maps like it. There's just too much to show without getting too sidetracked and overwhelmed for now. The fact of the matter is that this preponderance of evidence and facts goes to show that no matter what occurs in the sky there, it is occurring on a flat, circular, and motionless Earth. The water doesn't lie.
There is nothing that wraps around Antarctica. No water, no planes fly over, nothing, and even less the sun. There's no sun going around Antarctica. Let me go ahead and get started right now. I apologize again for my voice. I originally presented this at, shout out to Russian Vids. I went to his show about a year ago. I presented this. And I give you credit to Fake Flip. He was the one who actually told me about it. Actually, he had, I talked about waves in my channel last year. As I have a master's degree in this field, we study emergency management, and we study about earthquakes and tsunamis. And I studied a lot the earthquake that happened in Chile in 1960. It was like, I studied a lot about that earthquake. It was a 9.5 earthquake, you know, in Chile that lasted 11 minutes. So this is how the water works. You know, the waters work like this. It wraps around, at the tsunami we were wrapped around islands and continents like Australia, New Zealand. We always wrap around. So I'm going to demonstrate that to you. 1960, we had this big earthquake in Chile. Okay? This is where it happened right here, just south of Santiago. And the tsunamis, the earthquake, the waves, the shock waves goes in every direction, as I'm gonna show you here. So it was so close of Antarctica. The intensity here was, you know, huge. And you see here, this is the if we lived on the globe, the earthquake, the tsunami that caused should have wrapped around Antarctica and climbed over here, like Africa and Atlantic Ocean right here. But what we observe is totally different, right? Totally different of this. So these screenshots I took from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. You see here the earthquake. So what I did, I took this screenshot, I combined them together to make it correctly like this. So you can see that, no way it never really wrapped around Antarctica. And I'm going to show you guys this animation, not only this, but several ones. So you observe the path this tsunami went, right? All the way arrived here in Japan 24 hours later. It totally engulfed Hawaii, the Hawaii Islands. So what I did, I took this screenshot from NOAA and I converted it into a EA map. So now you understand what's going on here. You understand that Antarctica is not an island continent. It's a ring. It's a barrier. It just contains this. Not only this, I'm going to show others, but the intensity of this earthquake being south of Santiago, really close to Antarctica, and never have wrapped. It should have wrapped it and come over here, south of Africa, here, everywhere. Nothing, right? Nothing. And you see here, it bounced off, okay, the ice wall and went back. And this is what happened. This is the earthquake. And I'm going to show you the animation. So here again, converted on an AE map. You can see that not even water wraps around Antarctica, right? So here's the path that the tsunami should have done this thing right here, wrapped around Antarctica, right away before reaching Hawaii or Japan. 16 hours later was around Hawaii, and 24 hours later in Japan, but it never really wrapped around Antarctica. So tsunamis never wrap around Antarctica, and neither does the sun. So it's impossible. That's why I have the conviction when I say that the Earth is flat, because by observing, we know that something wrong. That Antarctica is not this island continent on the bottom of a ball. Now, after I did this presentation at Russian Vid's channel, there was a debate on Modern Day Debate, and Austin debated PhD Tony. So Austin did mention this, my presentation here, the tsunamis not wrapping around Antarctica. And I'm going to show you that this is a phenomenon that even globe believers know. Tsunamis do not wrap around Antarctica. And I'm going to show a clip here from PhD Tony and his explanation. And then I'm going to show you how it doesn't make sense at all. So let's first hear PhD Tony.
Why do tsunamis bounce off Antarctica and not reflect around? And that would be because Antarctica is atypical of all the continents in the world in having a very deep continental shelf at around about a depth of 500 to 800 meters. So the propagation of tsunamis as they interact with that shelf is very different from the other continents. And the reason the continental shelf around Antarctica is so deep is because of the load of the ice sheet that's on top of it. The mass of that ice sheet depresses the continent of Antarctica and makes the shape of the continental shelf atypical.
All right, so he knows that tsunamis do not wrap around Antarctica, but his explanation makes no sense, and I'm going to show you here how it makes no sense whatsoever. All right, so first let me explain here what he was saying. So these are the continental shelves right here. So he said that because the Antarctica has a lot of weight because of the snow, it has depressed this continental shelf, and for this reason the waves will not wrap around Antarctica. Makes no sense whatsoever, okay? So here you have Antarctica, here you have Chile, the ocean floor. This is the continental shelf in Antarctica. He claims this is like 800 meters, about, I don't know, in miles, how can I convert? I know 1 kilometer, 1,000 meters, about 1.6 miles. So let's say that's 1.6 mile deep here, okay? So what he's saying is that because the continental shelf is too deep, that the waves do not wrap around Antarctica. It makes no sense whatsoever what he said. And I'm going to show you here a couple of animations, right? So this is a simulation. It's not the real thing because it hasn't happened. This would be the tsunami caused by an earthquake in the Las Palmas Island in the Atlantic, okay? Pay attention how the waves are going, the tsunami waves will go not just forward but back and engulf everything here. Look at this. So that's a simulation, of course. This has not happened, but the following video it's based on one that happened. See how the waves propagate all the way to the back, to the front, and basically engulfs everything in the middle. You know, islands, small islands, big islands, reaches North America, reaches Brazil, all the islands, Cuba and Florida, and enters the Gulf of Mexico. Right? That's how the tsunami waves will behave. It's not gonna bounce off an island because the ice shelf is too big, tall, and makes it heavy. It makes no sense. Right, so let's now watch another. This is a simulation based on a real tsunami that happened in 2021 near New Zealand. So that's the tsunami. So pay attention how it wraps around New Zealand, and it's going to wrap all around Antarctica. I mean Australia and Indonesia and other islands, and see how it reaches South America. But pay attention here, but guys on the bottom, how it that never wraps around Antarctica. Okay, Antarctica is the container there, and reaches North America, Japan, Alaska, everywhere. Okay, now let's imagine for a second that the Antarctica is more or less the size of Australia, maybe a little bigger. Let's imagine that Antarctica is right there in the middle. Okay, so pay attention. All right, according to PhD Tony, that would not happen because Antarctica has a continental shelf too deep, due of being too heavy because of the snow. It makes no sense, you know. It's his globe interpretation, or he's trying to defend the globe, so he's using this analogy. It makes no sense. It would wrap around Antarctica just as it wraps around Australia and every continent that encounters in the middle. So I'm going to show this is the Chile one, and pay attention on the bottom here how the Antarctica really contains this tsunami. It never erupts around it and shows like reaching South Africa. No, that's the way, because Antarctica is the container, it's the ice wall. And this is for those, sometimes I even get comments from Flat Earth to say, oh, there's no ice wall. Because you don't understand. Of course there is one. And the waters are contained. Do you guys think the oceans go on forever? No. Okay, so this is what's going on, right? You had two other ways only here, through the Drake Passage and here. And then this water reached part of the Atlantic. But there's no other way. Okay, so this is what happened right there. It can only happen on a flat Earth, surrounded by a container, okay, which is the ice wall, Antarctica. So this is proof. That's why I have the conviction, the Earth is flat, because I understand this stuff. And Antarctica is the containment, contains all the oceans. No, I'm going to explain this wrapping around. It's called diffraction. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. My throat is really bad. But diffraction can be considered as the bending of waves around objects. All right, so if Antarctica was really an island, you would see something similar to this. It wraps around it. You would wrap around it. Okay, just like this guy, you know, he wraps all around his little island. Imagine Antarctica there in the middle. If the tsunami wave comes strong as in Chile, 1960, 11 minutes. The earthquake lasted 11 minutes. And he would have wrapped around Antarctica. He doesn't. He didn't. And he doesn't. And as I said, so imagine Antarctica there being wrapped around this tsunami. If Antarctica was this island on the bottom of a spinning ball, you would see this. You don't see it. Even the globe guy knows that tsunamis do not wrap around Antarctica. But his explanation that the continental shelf is too deep makes no sense. It's just saying like if you build a house, the foundation really deep, with a lot of weight on top, the waves at the beach will not wrap around it. It doesn't make any sense at all. So this is the part that I want to talk to you about the tsunamis. I talked about this before. All right, so we have Antarctica, right? Antarctica, it's roughly the size of Brazil. But you can fly around here. They say you can get up to 84 degrees south, but the other half you can't fly. It makes no sense. Oh, it's too cold. How come this side it's colder than this side? Okay, and you can land at 767 here, but you cannot fly over, right? You fly from Anchorage, Alaska to Miami. You fly from Sao Paulo to London. You fly from Amsterdam down here to South Africa. And you cannot complete this 2,000 miles only. It's of course, guys, it's right there. There's no flights around Antarctica. We booked a guy, there's a millionaire flat earther. He tried to book a flight from Buenos Aires to Perth, and the company would make a stop in South Africa. It doesn't make sense on the globe. Plot this on the Gleason's map. You can understand what's going on.
And again, this is the scientific method to make predictions and to test them.
Good look at what really occurs on July 8th, because the media really just makes the statement that 99% of the population is in sunlight this day. So I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, 99%, but they don't talk about the surface area on the Earth that's being covered with light. So that's what we're going to look at in this presentation, and we're going to compare it with both the circular level plane Earth versus the globe. And so you can see where the sun is there. It's located in Africa here. So you can see all the lit up area is the daytime. And I put this night on the sides here to show, you know, where we're at. Everybody's got to realize we've seen all these pictures, all these graphics of how the sun's hitting the globe Earth. And I just chose different seasons here. But you're always seeing it lighting up half of the globe for all seasons. So this is a geometric limitation of what the sun and the globe heliocentric model can do. The sunlight rays always provides daylight on 50% of the Earth's surface area, no more and no less, always 50%. It can never, ever, ever change. Okay, this is a key. So now we're finding out, okay, the maximum square mileage on half of the Earth being lit is 98,355,957 square miles, no more and no less, always that number. So now we're going to take a look at the actual data for sunlight on July 8th. And when we do that, now this is a limitation of the sun and the geoid spherical Earth. Then if we look at it on a globe map, we created this. Basically, this is the daylight side of the Earth. Then on the back side, which I call the nighttime side, no sunlight. And we still got 180 degrees latitude and 180 degrees longitude. We got 12 hours of nighttime. Now, I'm using the Mercator map. I'm saying this would be the expected sunlight coverage on the spherical geoid Earth on July 8th. And this is the limitation now of 180 degrees latitude and longitude for it. This is the actual data now, you can see here. Okay, so there's point 1 south of the sun, location 1, location number. So I show you the location numbers as it goes around from the data on the spreadsheet. Sun is zenith at plus 22.4 latitude, plus 12.54 longitude, Belma, Nigeria. So you can see as we go around, for a while it stays within, you know, on the bottom half. When we get to that equator, it's going way beyond the sunlight coverage that the heliocentric model allows.
Wow.
And then we go the other way around. As soon as it's the equator, it's doing the same thing over here. Okay. So daylight coverage, over 50% of the geode Earth is shown on either side here in black. So there you go.
That's incredible.
This is physically impossible for the spherical geode Earth to do this.
I want to show you one thing before I go. This might people ask me what's your favorite proof, and I think I found it. I think I literally found my favorite proof of all. So right now people say, well, how does the sun light up exactly half of the Earth? When it's because the sun is, as it goes out, the light wraps around. Because we're right near the equinox right now, it's a kind of the sun is making a circle, and then it's also wrapping around. So we're getting this equal day and night. But if we jump forward, we go to, where are we now? We're in September, October, November, December. So in December, when the sun's way out there, it really wraps around and you have this wider area of light.
Now take your little model for the seasons and make it show night and day. Then try and make the night and day portions match up with these sunrise and sunset times. Demonstrate the light from the sun illuminating this location for more than 70% of its trajectory.
Now, on a ball, I don't care how it's twisted, tilted, spinning, the sun can only light up exactly half of the ball all the time. It can only light up half the ball all the time. People go, well, that's because this map is distorted. That's why it looks different. Okay, cool. I like that. We're going to go with that. But 6 months later, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sun comes all the way in. It's not wrapping as much, and you kind of more have a round. You have more of a round shape because it's not refracting around or bouncing off the dome so much. So that's not the proof. I want to show you that's this little background for my proof. And the proof is this, right? So we have the Gleason's map. This is the best map that we have. Oops, get that out. And all right, and this is from the Weather Channel. And they're like, on this day, the sun is the 70% of the Earth. I think it was 72 or 73% of the Earth is in light. Can't have that on a globe. How can 73% of the Earth be lit up by a single source light? Get a basketball, go into a pitch black room, have a light on the far side of the room, that's the sun. Spin, twist, tilt the basketball. It's always exactly 50% lit. So let's look at that on a map, right? So this is from day, what's it called? Day, night, time and date. This is showing at this date, August 13th. California is just about to get dark. South America is completely in the light. Everything's in the light except Australia and these islands over here. Okay, so this is the only thing that's not lit right now. Right? This is a real world observation of the lighting pattern. So let's take a look. So we have the Gleason's map, and the sun was right there. We're going to put the sun right where they said the sun was. And we're going to lift it up and see, can it make that pattern? So we lift it up, and look, South America, California, everything except Australia and these islands are in the dark. Hey, that works on a flat Earth map. Let's take a look on a globe. So we got the globe here. So here's Australia. We'll put Australia right in the dark. So Australia and those islands are now in the dark. And we walk around to the other side. We have a single source light. And look, South America is in the dark. America's in the dark. It doesn't work. So let's reorient the globe. We're going to put South America right where they said it was. And we have it tilted correctly to the sun. Right? So South America's in the light. California is just getting dusk. And we go back over to the other side. And all of Russia is in the dark. There's too much. All of this, we're going to show you All of that should be in the light. It should be like that. But it doesn't work on a globe, right? It doesn't work on a globe. This is the lighting pattern. This is redoable on our map, and it matches reality. One of them matches reality, and the other one doesn't work at all. What is the Glober excuse of that other than you're an idiot? Get out of your mother's basement. You know, that's all they have. They got nothing. They have nothing.
Yeah. It's limited to be 50% all the time daylight. And again, I'm just showing this to show you that this looks very similar when you look at the coverage here. You look at my lines. I'll go back and forth, but you can see it's very, very similar. I stayed within the full daylight. You can see that I didn't use any twilight, because you can see that point there, 0.6, right there in South America. It's pretty much the same spot. So now let's look at it on this type of a globe map. So we've got it daylight side and nighttime side. It's a mirror of the data. Like location 6 is a mirror of location 18 on the other side.
Wow.
So it just shows you all the daylight on the nighttime side. So it's physically impossible to, for the data that's being shown for July 8th. Yeah, that's why they're saying, oh, it's 99% of the population. They ignore the surface area of what's going on, okay?
This is huge. There's no way around it. You can't say refraction. You have to have a second sun theory popping up. Something has to happen to provide that much sunlight. The dimensions of the globe would have to change drastically.
Right.
Wow.
Yep. So now this is kind of a summary. The actual sunlight coverage on July 8th, 2024 at time 11:15 UTC proves that Earth is not a globe/geode, but instead a circular level plane. Because on a heliocentric globe or geode, is it geometrically and physically impossible for sunlight to exceed 50% of the Earth's surface area. However, on July 8th, 2024 at time 11:15 UTC, we have proven sunlight exceeds 50% of the Earth's surface area and is lighting up nighttime areas of the globe or geoid Earth when it should never occur. Therefore, this evaluation proves that Earth is not a globe or a geoid. So this is the coverage. You can see here's the sun. That's in Doma, Africa. Location 1 is here, and 2 is going clockwise around. Okay, all the way around. You can see the geometry of things working out because it's intelligently designed. And that's why it shows the data there, because it's hitting all longitude lines.
As we've seen throughout the years, there is so much that has already validated the flat circle maps. I would easily argue that a 24-hour light or sun in Antarctica, detached from the ground and water, could not possibly override all the evidence and proofs that has been gathered. Logic demands you need to take all observations and knowledge into account, and not just a single observation to determine truth. Now that the globe model has been thoroughly debunked and taken off the table, and by ignoring all the evidence that shows a 24-hour sun has never existed in Antarctica and requires it to be faked, how could it work on the flat, circular maps, hypothetically speaking? First, let's look at a working flat Earth model for the sun to see how the sun could likely be operating on our flat Earth.
The sun is a personal or local objective projection. This can be verified by anyone by doing the opposite side crepuscular rays experiment, like in this animation, and see that someone looking back at someone seeing those rays cannot and will not see the same thing. A rainbow acts the same way as the sun, being that you can only see it at a specific angle, and you cannot walk around a rainbow as it will always move away from you. And you cannot see the opposite side of a rainbow. A rainbow is a source projection, and its source is the sun. Therefore, if the sun is also a source projection of an unknown source, we can start modeling the path of the sun for each observer on Earth. We did this by taking just one longitude, that being the 0 UTC meridian on Earth, and inputted the data from observations for azimuth and declination of the sun and traced the sun object for that location for a year for each 10th latitude north and south of the equator, and just let the data run its course for a year. But the model became so heavy with data and tiny hair-thin tracer lines that even with a super machine, we couldn't render the result. After some trial and error, we finally managed to get a clear view on the end result. And even with our sun being an equal distance to the observer, the shape and layout ended up in a torus field around the Earth. But it became very clear to us that based on Ken Wheeler's research into magnetic holography, that the sun we see is projected into the electromagnetic field in the sky. The objective sun follows the magnetic field lines that are unique for each location on Earth. So the real sun is a source coming from outside of the so-called firmament, which probably uses light polarization that is projected into the magnetic field and rendered through the atmosphere. It is no coincidence that all sun arcs combined create this torus-like field, and this is version 1.0. As soon as we find out how to use equal distance 3D vectoring and a formula on the angles in the data sheets from observations, we can then get a true shape in second-by-second motion in the field lines. This torus field is by no means a stationary field, as the sun moves north and south during the year.
So if the sun we see is an energy/light source that is being projected onto Earth's electromagnetic fields and rendered through our atmospheric dome of vision via perspective, then perhaps there is a magnetic loop in the Antarctic that occurs where an energy/light source could follow.
This torus field is by no means a stationary field, as the sun moves north and south during the year. We animated this in what we call the cosmic breath of flat Earth, and this shows that by simply increasing the current in the field from the North Pole, you then push the field south, and by lowering the current, it flows back north again. It can also be pushed back and forth by an outside magnetic field from beyond the Antarctic, 90 degrees south latitude. The southern magnetic anomaly is also a moving anomaly, and who knows what more lies beyond the southern latitudes, all of which have influence on the field. From a creation standpoint, it must have a function as well. If we animate all sun positions over a year, the animation gives the impression of a wave going around the field like an outside source pushing and pulling on the field and projecting its image, that being the sun or moon, in it. We do not know yet what, where, and how this outside source is mechanically working, so to speak, but from an engineer's perspective, everything that works like a machine or clock must have a basic principle and laws of physics to discover its nature. We just have to figure out where to go from here and what experiments can be derived to either build on this or modify the basic concept. With this concept, we can boldly say we have created a working flat Earth model that can be held up to scrutiny, evaluation, testing, and experimenting to either verify or debunk certain aspects of this model. It is therefore with great honor and humility that we present this first and only working flat Earth model with an actual base in geometry, science, and observations. In the coming weeks, we will be releasing ground views of this model to show that current sun angles are dead on correct.
I'm going to show you that the large dome is in place and the small dome represents our vision of the sky. So gonna do it and show how the 24-hour sun in Antarctica is absolutely possible on the flat Earth with the celestial dome and the way we view the sky as a concave sky. So here we go. I'm gonna be moving the light around the top of the celestial dome, and it will follow the path of the Tropic of Capricorn. And what you're going to see is in the glass dome, you're going to see the sun make a 24-hour circle in Antarctica below South America, which is, I believe, where the final experiment is going to take place. So if they're far enough south, they could very possibly see a 24-hour sun, which does not refute the flat Earth, because we can absolutely demonstrate it right here live. So if I can demonstrate it live with the model and the map, then it's not a refutation of a flat Earth. It's possible on the flat Earth. I don't care whether it happens or not. I think we probably don't see a full 24-hour sun unless we go far enough south, and yeah, we probably would, based off of these assumptions, which the flat Earth makes these assumptions, period. Now, whether people understood that or not, because they haven't dug deep enough, doesn't matter. But that wasn't all directed towards you, Wendy, but you asked for me to do this, so I'm doing it for you. Gonna zoom in now onto the small dome. And I'm gonna move the sun. See, look at that. See the sun inside that dome? I'm following the Tropic of Capricorn. Now this way, you're gonna get a lot more reflection, because obviously it's not to scale and perfect here, but you can see how the sun is perfectly mimicked by the concave view that we view the sky with. Because of the celestial dome and the way we view the sky, you could very possibly get a 24-hour sun circling the horizon in Antarctica. It's not impossible on a flat Earth. I've just proven it's not impossible. So the final experiment, which is not an experiment, it's an observation that has set out to debunk flat Earth with this 24-hour sun observation, has already failed. Before it even starts, it's already failed, because we can clearly demonstrate how it happens. All the evidence points to we live on a flat surface.
But Jaron's right. It's like there isn't anything that they wouldn't, stop at, because obviously this is really coming down to, one of the main issues being the 24-hour sun in the south. Jaron has busted them time and time and time again, cutting out anywhere from 5 to 8 hours of footage, and then trying to claim that there is a 24-hour sun. He's written them, gotten responses from them. Basically their response is, well, that's not really our department, or there's too much, it would take too much bandwidth, all these ridiculous excuses. So obviously if they aren't going to do it via a straight up CGI, which is entirely possible, then who's to say that they couldn't launch something up in the sky, with their little fake sun patent, and make it at least appear that there's a local sun, and navigate it around in a circle? I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility at all. And I think that, when it comes down to brass tacks, they may be prompted into doing something that desperate.
Well, they can control balloons, right? And they can lift 8,000 pounds. So I'm pretty sure you could put a pretty bright ass light on a balloon, and if you can control its path, you just have it circle. I don't put it past them.
You could also use airplanes and any other flying technologies that we may have no idea that exists to carry a sun simulator. Another possibility is the use of lasers. Laser guide star systems are known facts, and so are the use of lasers for weather manipulation. Could focused beams possibly create an artificial sun? Could a sun be projected or reflected? All these technologies exist to pull off such a stunt.
Angel, angel, what have I done? I face the quakes, the wind, the fire. I've conquered country, crown and throne. Why can't I cross this river? Angel, angel, what have I done? I face the quakes, the wind, the fire. I've conquered country, crown and throne. Why can't I cross this river? Pay no mind to the battles you
show you a patent that I found that's going to explain what you're watching on this FAA.gov camera. This is the http abc.ams.faa.gov. This is a government camera. Watch this. Keep watching, and I'm going to show you the patent for it afterwards. And I'll show you the patent. And also, I put it up on my backup channel last night. A shorter version. I instantly got a copyright strike, and they instantly banned it worldwide. See that right there? You see that? You see that? See the sun up here? See this one falling away? We've never seen that before. We watch these cameras all the time. You seen that? The sun is right up here. This is another reflector or something to that effect, being pushed out of the way or whatever. Not exactly sure, but it's not real. It's not natural. That bright white hot sun. Now look at these rays. These are not natural rays. These are not natural camera lens flares. You know what I mean? This is from a man-made source right there. Okay? You catching me? You follow me? I'm going to put the patent up. Freak out. This says it's a system and method for irradiation of planet surfaces. One claim, 10 drawing figures. It says reflector, satellite, 22,400 miles, intensity of illumination on Earth. Spot in lumens /foot times 10. Patented 24-hour orbit, ISO 6-hour orbit, diameter of illuminated Earth spot in miles, 5, 10, 50. All right, I'm gonna let you read all this, but read it all and save this video in case they pull it. I'm not being over dramatic or anything to that effect. Notice that this map that they're showing is Baltimore, Harrisburg, Scranton, Philadelphia, so on and so forth. They show the distance and how much, you know, this is all the scientific stuff. You see what I'm saying? Crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. Intensity of illumination of area D, reflector, illuminated areas, blah, 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 and intensity of solar radiation, lumen foots. Thus, for any given planar reflector 20 satellite, as the orbital altitude is decreased, the size of the reflector illuminated area 24 of the Earth's surface is decreased and the intensity of the illumination is increased. To gain a physical understanding of the potential lighting area effect on a circular plane, reflector 20 satellite, 1,000 feet in diameter, is in a synchronous orbit. I'll leave the rest of this for you to read. This is what everybody's been talking about for the last couple of weeks. This thing has showed up on the Secchi telescope, the stereo solar telescope. You see this thing? That right there is an exact side view of the sun simulator patent that I put up in March. It's the exact same thing. That shows it right there. clear as a bell. See this? This is the patent that I put up a long time ago. You see that right there? Here they are one more time. Baltimore, Philadelphia. Shows the patents. It explains that that would be some sort of a, I think this right here is exactly what we saw in it. You see this thing? Yep.
There are patents out there right now for an artificial sun, and China already launched one and showed an example. So people are showing videos that they took online, and they have a solar simulator. Now this is all patented, there's images, this is online. You can find this information here.
Obviously, if they aren't going to do it via a straight up CGI, which is entirely possible, then who's to say that they couldn't launch something up in the sky, you know, with their little fake sun patent and make it at least appear that there's a local sun, and navigate it around in a circle? I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility at all. And I think that, you know, when it comes down to brass tacks, they may be prompted into doing something that desperate.
So let's go to Antarctica together and report back to the world what we see.
And the sun sets, the sun sets, the sun sets.
There's only partial amounts of times where you will have sun, but not for the full 24 hours.
Ever, right? Ever in Antarctica? It's never like that?
No.
Okay.
Never like that. For all the 30 years that we've been traveling, we haven't had any particular person actually come back and state that that is the case, where they found that for the full 24 hours there's basically been that particular time frame that the sun has been out.
Okay.
I know that it does, the sun does set a bit later within the evening because of it obviously being on the lost continent. But it's not that the sun will be out completely for the full 24 hours.
Okay. Perfect. Oh.
Another issue is that the Earth rotates and it's moving sideways at a phenomenal distance. So, for goodness sake, how can people ignore the Earth's orbit around the Sun at the same time as its rotation? They forget about, what about the sideways movement? So this would upset your whole filming thing. Your footage would slow down and speed up. I mean, what is wrong with these people?
That's impossible. There is no excuse. This video is another fake. There you go, another blatant fakery that took some serious effort to fool you into believing in their globe model. How many times will they be able to fool you? Thanks for watching.
Because of the celestial dome and the way we view the sky, you could very possibly get a 24-hour sun circling the horizon in Antarctica. It's not impossible.
This torus field is by no means a stationary field, as the sun moves north and south during the year.
So if the sun we see is an energy/light source that is being projected onto Earth's electromagnetic fields and rendered through our atmospheric dome of vision via perspective, then perhaps there is a magnetic loop in the Antarctic that occurs where an energy/light source could follow.
Wrapped it in, I could come over here, South of Africa, here and here, everywhere. Nothing, right? Nothing. And you see here, it bounced off, okay, the ice wall, and went back, and this is what happened.
It's cold out here.
Yeah, it is. It's like the South Pole.
It's like the deep South Pole, if there was one. There isn't, though.
Thanks for walking me in my door.
Yeah.